He's had enough. Get him out of here.
Sticking close to the rear, hunting for that draft and looking for the overtake.
Alright, you lot, come for a bit of the old grid review, have we? Looks like it and all. And yeah, you've probably heard me talk about this game before. I loved it back on the Xbox 360. By the way, kudos for this bloomin' intro, holy moly. So Grid is finally back on our systems. There's been a few of them. We had the Grid 2 and we had Grid Turismo thing, Grid GT, something like that. But this is a sort of homecoming, let's say. It's just called Grid. There's no stuff in and around that name, no subtitles, no semicolons, nothing. What does it look like? What does it play like? Well, there's a few extras with this and there's a few minuses with this version of the game. I have very, very fond memories of the original Grid, like ridiculously fond. It was one of my favourite sort of arcade/sim driving games of that year. So what's it given us for the PlayStation Pro? Well, fuck all is the answer to that. Well, that's a bit of a lie because there's no actual options or high-res, low-res stuff with it in regards to the user interface, but there is on the back of the box, and this is a top tip for PlayStation Pro owners. If you don't see any centric options within the game itself, always look on the back of the box because there'll be a PlayStation Pro enhanced icon that will be there, meaning that there is that added, be it frame rate, be it anti-aliasing, be it whatever. You have to read up on it, but there is some support here. It's just not switch on, switch offable, if you know what I mean. This game is boasting some extremely good visuals and some very, very good aqua effects on the track and on the other cars and on the replays. We're going to look at a lot of this stuff in detail because the replays are something that is so important to me with these games, and of course a slight amount of realism is also important, but I also hang that off, or I offset that with cool arcade controls. You know, a big fan of Burnout. I also like Gran Turismo, so there's some weighing up to do here. There's also some hilarious announcers in this game.
This right here is a street zone, and I've just been told the race is seconds away from lights out.
There's a female Aussie announcer, and there's also a guy, and they keep cutting each other off. It's just hilarious. I know I should be laughing at it.
Here. And I don't just mean traveling here, Alex.
Okay, it looks like the race is about to start.
The cosmetics on the cars are something that the Grid series has always had this sort of thing with liveries, whatever you want to pronounce it, and sponsorship, and putting on different grades of sponsorship and better sponsors and getting more money for doing the career mode with a cool sponsor on. That's kind of, the depth on that is not really here, unfortunately, because I quite enjoyed that. Now, the first thing I did was I went to the difficulty. It's ridiculously easy on normal, okay? And you also have that hideous Forza green line on the track telling you, you know, to put the brake on and off. Go and change it to hard right now. Go and do it right now and come back. Also take the names off the racers. You don't need to be told that John Whittle is in front of you. That doesn't matter at all, but it does matter with the Nemesis system, but they've worked around that. It's quite cool. I'll show you how that works. The metagame mechanics features a rewind mechanic. Obviously, you only get 3 if you put it on hard, which is seriously cool because you can go inhibitionless, you know, on the final lap if you put the work in and don't make mistakes and don't use them up. And there's brilliant situations where you can't take a risk because you don't have any left. I didn't used to like relying on it as a game mechanic. I was very sim in that direction, but it works very well here. It's really, really cool. Now, the second thing is the Nemesis system and the announcer. Your team head guy on the radio is the most dreariest. He's got a South African accent. Sometimes I've decided he sounds like Vickers from District 9.
Let's rein it in. You push them over the edge here.
What I wanted to cover with this piece of footage is the game, when you get these new GT cars opened and when you get some of these new tracks open up and when the weather starts and the sunshine and it all sort of comes together a little bit better. You don't really feel it in those Mini Coopers, you know, going around Brands Hatch. Once it gets to the US, once it gets to these central tracks, which was the first game was very famous for, things really get intense with the visuals and the sound. This game's got incredible sound design as well. Very, very high in production on that level.
Alex, never underestimate. Okay, sorry, we're about to get started.
So as with a lot of my reviews, I like to sort of tell a story, and the story with this one is that up till this point in the game, I was slumped on my couch and just sort of twiddling my pad, you know, and then the Formula 1000 came up, and my reflexes had to go up about 10 notches. I'm an older guy now, but the actual, like, I was in a obviously trance-like state as always, but I was just so hypnotized by how much concentration I had to give these cars. They were like a gun. They were like guns that you turned and pointed and squirted to get out of trouble. It was ridiculous. No realism whatsoever. And I don't play any Formula 1 games. I know I should. I don't think they're that strong. The older ones are. But this gave me that great taste of Formula action. And the twitch reflexes you need. Holy shit. Okay, so I think for some of you, especially probably you PC owners, there might be a bit of an elephant in the room, and it's the visuals and some of the way this game can look. This game is a very good looking piece of software, but there are certain angles, a bit like a person, that it doesn't look good at from. And some of these angles turn up in the replays. Now, I love the replays on this game. It allows you to slow them down, doesn't allow you to zoom in. You used to be able to zoom in on the original on the replays, but it doesn't feature the full track of cars or a lot of cars a lot of the time. It keeps defaulting to the in-car view, which is annoying me. It's Gran Turismo's replays are the best in the world, right, full stop, and this doesn't even come close to them, but I wanted it to be at least dazzling. There's a lot of destructible mechanics in and around on the map itself, but not as many as there were on the original grid. That had wooden posts and all kinds of, you remember those funny little cellophane things on the side of the course that would catch on the bottom of the bumper of the car, you know what I mean? There'd be loads of things hanging off your car and a door would fly open and all this sorts. I don't see that much of it. There is some really cool in-car stuff. Obviously having your hood peel off when you're driving along is absolutely amazing. Also, those in-car acoustics are amazing, aren't they? If you're watching this video with headphones on and that piece, the rattling and the rolling around, you can hear the sort of fuselage of the car shake and creak. It's awesome. So let's talk more about these visuals and what the issues that I've found with it. Being, you know, a modern PlayStation Pro-centric game, this does suffer a few frame rate issues, and they are in normal places for games like this. Wreckfest had this problem, which is just when just about every car in the race is on a single corner, be it a pile-up or just be it at the start of a race, it will chug. It very quickly picks itself up. If it was on a screen as a number, I reckon it goes right down to about 15 and then right back up into the 40s again within seconds. It's just probably fledgling stuff, I hope, or even, you know, things to do with a due patch, that sort of stuff. We don't know at this stage. You will notice it if you play it, but that doesn't really hinder anything about its outstanding visuals, because when it is running well, it looks incredible. I've got some night footage here that works. I like the idea of the strong contrast in a lot of the visuals. There is no HDR support for this, so that's a little bit annoying. Now, just back to the story thing. This is, again, where the game stepped up its game, was when I got to the special GTR stuff. So you'll need to do quite a lot and earn quite a lot of money to purchase one of these damned vehicles. But once you get them going, and once everyone else, obviously, on the track has got these, whoa, it just goes up another level again. Again, I had to lean forward. Again, I'm focusing on a 2.2mm size bit of the screen in the middle of my giant TV. The only bit of the screen I'm actually looking at is this, like, you know, little foot square in the middle. I actually have to turn my head to look up at the lap times and where I'm at, but thankfully Vickers is on the ball with that one.
Oh, brother, I was a bit nervous.
As someone who owns every single decent racer on the PlayStation 4, and even put a video out last year about it, it garnered a lot of interest because I actually came through with Project Cars 2 as the winner. Spoiler alert, but you might have seen the video. It was controversial because Gran Turismo at the time did not have a single player campaign. So I'm just thinking, what is my advice for somebody who's into these types of games, who's looking to buy a game like this? And it's very important that you're a bit like me and you don't have a huge hang up on realism, and that you enjoy the sort of risk and reward that comes with an arcade racer. Things are stacked up against you on this game, but you're not thinking 100 corners ahead, and one huge mistake is not going to give you another 4 laps of boring gameplay. It also gives you incredible cars very quickly. One of the cheeky things that it does is, when you go into free play, as a YouTuber, I want to show you guys all the coolest tiers of car, and so I don't have to unlock 120% of the game before I can get the footage. So you would hop into free play, and it says that you've got to either purchase a car, a decent one to race it with, or you can loan it, which is like a percentage of your monetary fund. Bloody hell. I thought that was a bit much, and I think there might also be an ultimate version of this game which gives you a little bit more in regards to the cars and different car types, and there's season passes, etc. Microtransactions it's done very well on, actually. I went straight and bought this game because of how deeply I'm in love with its predecessors. I also crave a good arcade racer, but this leans slightly more towards realism, I feel, than the original Grid does. But that doesn't hurt it at all. I think it gives it more, and it gives it depth as well. It's very loud, it's very fast, it has a very good way of letting you know of speed, applying blur mechanics and just that sort of smashed concussionness that I saw on Need for Speed Shift. You remember Need for Speed Shift? Jesus Christ, that was, I don't think you could even get out of the in-car view mode on that game. And that's another thing, I very rarely went to on-car or low-car view mode with this game. I felt it was nice to see the damage and damage mechanics. Now, a few reviewers, ACG being one of them, have pointed out that the damage and damage physics are again a little bit toned down. They are a little bit toned down from Grid, the original Grid. The original Grid, would there be bumpers and engine blocks and fucking roofs lying all over the place, and they would affect your speed. You would have a little diagram of your engine and your chassis in the corner, and there'd be red lights indicating the fact that if you took another hit up front, then it would reduce your top speed. It changed everything. You had to, act passively. There is damage on hard mode with this, but there's no graph to show you what impact that's having on your car's performance, and that's a big mistake. And it also doesn't show you how many laps you've got left on a rewind, which is seriously annoying. You might be in a rewind, you can't cancel a rewind, and it might be your last lap, last rewind. You don't know, it doesn't tell you. And again, the teammate. Your teammate that you race against is the fucking worst.
Hey, come on, that's your teammate.
I've been training with you for more than 19 years, man!
I think the place for good destruction mechanics is obviously with Wreckfest. That now proudly wears that crown, and if you want that sort of gameplay, go straight for it. It's incredible. The jaw-dropping amount of debris on track and twisted split metal everywhere in the air. This is a lot more refined affair. I do actually like it. It's got a very good campaign that gives you a little bit more each time you develop your trees of interest in regards to car type. It might be stock car, or it might be GT, or it might be touring car. So I'm going down these little avenues, and I'm enjoying that very much. I think you have to be a stickler for Grid to enjoy it. By the way, it's a bit weird on the whole penalty. Do you see I just took that comment? Anyway, the gripes are high, but the reward is also high. I think this game's beautiful, and I think it's doing for me what I wanted it to. So, ladies and gentlemen, I will see you down there.
That's fantastic! Oh, you guys are brilliant, eh?